Joining us here on Montana Talks, Marc, the communications director for the Trump 2020 re-election campaign. Marc, great to have you on Montana Talks again.
Yeah, it's good to be with you, Aaron.
Yeah, well, obviously, it's not your typical post-election day primary election coverage here, given, all the concerns over coronavirus and everything like that. But, the thing I've been thinking about a lot here is you got people making a run on vital supplies at the grocery store. Some of the shelves are completely empty for some supplies. But you know what? I gassed up at $2.29 a gallon in Montana just the other day. And yet we have Joe Biden on the stage Sunday night wanting to saying no new fracking, no more drilling on federal land. It's just unconscionable to think how much worse of a situation we'd be in if we had somebody like him or Bernie in charge right now.
No, you really have to ask yourself, and obviously I know how important that is in Montana, but we're looking at record low oil prices, record low gas prices, and for the first time in many, many decades, America is actually an energy exporter. We are no longer required to import our oil and our energy from other parts of the world, including in places where we don't find a lot of allies, we find a few enemies. And so we actually have that energy independence that we have so long talked about. And here you have Joe Biden openly talking about telling millions of Americans who work in the energy sector that they should learn to code and that the government believes that we should put them out of a job. And it's really irresponsible. It's short-sighted. But it's really what we've come to see from the Democrat Party. I mean, there is no difference between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. I mean, what we saw even on the debate stage Sunday night was Biden being pulled closer and closer to Bernie in order to get his radical votes. So that's why you see him turning his back on 40 years of opposition. He now supports taxpayer-funded abortion up to the moment of birth. He wants to raise taxes trillions of dollars while our economy is obviously very strong, but also going through, a little bit of a bump because of the coronavirus. And here they are talking about government takeovers of industries, putting people out of work, raising taxes. It's the exact wrong answer.
Yeah, I was talking with one of our county commissioners here in Montana, Yellowstone County Commissioner John Oslin, and he made a great point that, look, we got to hunker down here for a little bit. This is kind of my summary of it because I kind of share something. We got to hunker down here a little bit. We got to push through this, but we're going to come out stronger on the other end of this, and there's going to be an economic burst just waiting to go off out there once we push through this thing right now. But I tell you, if we had things like no more fracking and no more drilling on federal lands, we'd have waiting lines out there for gas right now, like some of the stuff that's missing off of shelves. I mean, we're getting a taste of the socialism they want to deliver.
Right, you're absolutely right, and what we've got to remember is, thank goodness we've had President Trump in office for 3 years, that we have such a strong economy that we can weather this temporary storm that is not caused by any fundamental problem in our economy. I mean, that's the thing we've got to remember. This is not like the financial crisis that led to the Great Recession. This is not like the tech bubble bursting in the late 90s or even some of the structural problems that we saw in the 70s and 80s. This is something that is completely caused not by malpractice of government, by industry or banks or financial institutions. This is something caused by a virus that started overseas. And so once we get through this, we will be even stronger for it. I believe there's a lot of pent-up frustration right now of people that once we get through it, there's going to be a buying spree. People are going to want to get out of the house. They're going to want to go do things. And so I think that we will see a very quick rebound. But the key is getting through it right now, making sure that the people who've been affected, the industries that have been affected are whole, because this is not something that they caused. This is not a bailout. We're not bailing anyone out because of something they did wrong. We're making sure that those companies, those industries, and ultimately those workers are able to continue to thrive through this temporary this temporary blip, and then we will be better for it on the other side.
Yesterday, at this exact same time, we spoke with Sam Faddis, who headed up the CIA's WMD operation for their counterterrorism center, and he made a great point about how government red tape has been a challenge here. And we talked about how the Trump administration, just like President Trump spent the first 3 years of his presidency cutting through this red tape, this regulatory red tape, we've now been identifying how much more regulations need to be done, or the red tape that needs to be cut through when responding to incidences like this as well. And so, the swamp there, we just continue to find more creatures in the swamp as we identify new regulations here.
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, let's think about this for a second. It took 65 days between us getting the sequencing for the coronavirus to the point that we are now actually at human testing of a vaccine. That is a remarkable time frame. It's a record time frame. And while, yes, we still have to go through the tests and verifications to make sure it's safe and effective, which could take another year plus, but just to get it to human testing in 65 days is remarkable, or the fact that we could have testing out amongst every state, private laboratories, private hospitals, all of these things. These don't happen in a vacuum, and it took just a matter of weeks for all of this to be approved. Emergency waivers have been granted. That's why you've got places like LabCorp and Quest and so many others that are out there doing the testing. It's really been remarkable, and I think as we get through this, people are going to come to see the benefit of having President Trump in there to cut regulation, cut through all of the government BS, and just say, let's get the job done.
Yeah, let's. The other point I made kind of early on last week was, okay, we're in an emergency. Let's act like we're in an emergency. Let's build stuff in America again. Let's build pipelines. Let's support new mining operations. And President Trump had an executive order focused on another critical thing, which is let's not be dependent on China and these other places for our medical supplies. This is what President Trump has been talking about since day one.
He's actually been talking about it for decades, even before he ran.
That's true, yeah.
Really remarkable, and he's absolutely right. I mean, we have outsourced so much under the leadership of Joe Biden and Democrats and many others who've been in office for 40 plus years. We have outsourced our medical supplies to not only China, but also a remarkable portion of them have gone to the UK, have gone to Ireland, have gone to other places. And then when we do find ourselves in a challenge, the fact that we had to send a military jet just in the last few days, we had to send a military jet to Germany to get millions of swabs, which we then, thankfully, because of the great work of FedEx, were able to meet us at the airport and get it out to the areas that were most affected. But what does it say to you that we had to go to Germany and send a military aircraft to Germany to get those in the first place? We need to be able to manufacture that stuff here, and we need to be able to do it here. So when we have an issue, we can respond quickly. And I think that's what you're seeing, not only in dealing with the crisis at hand, but as we move forward, this is going to be an opportunity because business sees it. They can't be beholden to whether it be military or economic or even healthcare issues around the world. They've got to be able to diversify and have their supply lines here, and I think we're going to see a great move toward that as we're moving ahead later this year.
Well, Marc Lauder, the communications director for the Trump 2020 re-election campaign, greatly appreciate your time this morning. I know we could go on, but I know you're short on time. I mean, especially now the EU closing their borders to most foreigners, Canada looking to do similar deal. And it's just interesting to me when Trump takes decisive action, which he took over a month and a half ago, they called him xenophobic and borderline racist. But now the EU and others are following similar suits here.
You will not hear the media or the liberals apologize about it, but what we all know is that what the president has done early and done decisively, has saved lives in America. And we need to keep seeing that kind of leadership. And whether the media says it or not, we can say it on his behalf.
Marc Lauder, great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Aaron.